off, and then it was just right up the middle. Touchdown. 6-7 plays later, touchdown. Quote of the weekend. We had some guys play their butts off tonight, and we're sitting here again. We're sitting here talking about the same things. Pound the table. Brian Kelly channels my mood while I do this podcast every time with you two. You are my spirit animal, Brian. What is going on? I'm angry. You were both out in Vegas, various levels of sobriety. Speaking of bad trip, there's been bad trips to Vegas. People have had bad trips to Vegas. They've left with regret, lack of purpose, injuries, pounding tables.
You see them at the airport, Dan. They're sitting at their gate, and their face. They're just wearing it. They're wearing Vegas on their face.
I used to do this trip where I'd go to Yahoo meetings up in Sunnyvale, California, in the Bay Area. And there was a flight. I could take a red eye back, but I had to go San Jose to Vegas and get the red eye. And I would show up to get the red eye in Vegas, and I would have not been in Vegas, right? I'm just connecting. Mm-hmm. And you get to the midnight flight back to, and it was like the people just sprawled out, just work. You're like, man, this town. When you come in with sober eyes, you're like, oh no, look at these people. They're just done. Puddles are they're sleeping on the floor. Guys I just blew my mortgage. Like they smell of smoke and everything. You're just like, oh, this flight is awful. What does this town do? Pat, what is happening with Brian Kelly? He's angry.
I will say I barely did Vegas. I flew in Sunday morning, wasn't feeling very good. Heroically did the Overreaction podcast with you all, and then covered the game, and then flew out Monday. Didn't place a single wager. And when I got to the airport, they originally said my flight out was D42. I go to D42, and that actually is a flight that's going to Baton Rouge. And yes, the defeated detritus that was slumped around at that gate, that was a rough bunch. That was a bunch that came in with high hopes and more money and left broke and 0-1. So that was a rough scene there. But it was a really good game. I thought it was a very good game. I didn't walk away from that down on LSU and down on Brian Kelly. Really, I know they are 0-1 3 years in a row now with Kelly, and they've lost. They take on these good games and they don't win them. They lost to Florida State twice, and now they've lost to USC, and certainly in 2 of the 3 of those season openers under Kelly, you could make a case they could have, should have won. Absolutely, the first one against Florida State, and then this one, they had the lead and they gave up 2 touchdown drives in the last half of the fourth quarter. And I get him being angry, and I get LSU fans being angry because that's what they do when they lose. But they're fine. They're okay. They're going to be fine, I think. But I'm more impressed with USC than I am distressed by LSU.
Yeah, same. USC's defense was kind of the star of the game in a way for me. I mean, obviously Miller Moss played incredibly well. Both quarterbacks did, but the improvement in USC's defense, just in tackling, especially up front. And they had some one-on-one tackles too in space that they made that the last few years just didn't seem like a USC program makes. So that was huge to see for them and for their future this year. But Pat might feel the same way. We're up in the press box of that game, and it's 17-13. Late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, and LSU twice takes over with drives up 4, and they started to run the ball well, a little better, got it going, and you thought, well, this is over. And we were talking with the people around me in the press box, we've seen this show before, about to be a 9-play, 70-yard drive with 7 runs, and LSU's going to score a touchdown and win the game and put it away. And that's what it felt like usually happens in a game kind of like that, especially with USC. But give it up again, circling back to the USC's defense. LSU had a 3rd and 1 around the 40 on one of those drives, lost a yard. LSU had a 3rd and maybe 6 in a great open field tackle to hold it to 3 yards and force another punt. So give it up for USC's defense. That was impressive. But yeah, the LSU folks, who I heard from quite a few after the game, were not happy. I think if you're an LSU fan, you take away from that game that offensively you have some really big weapons. You have a quarterback that is pretty sharp. And defensively, I think you're improved from last season. It feels like that. It seems like they're improved. The one issue was late in the game. You couldn't run the ball, and you struggled to run the ball the whole game, really. And that was the thing that came out of that game for the LSU side. While USC is probably celebrating having the offensive weapons that it thought and having an improved defense, I think LSU probably came away from that game. Same thing, right? Improved defense, offensive weapons, but oh my goodness, we can't run the ball. And with a veteran, experienced offensive line, one of the most experienced in the country, could not run the ball late when it mattered, and that was kind of the difference. And that is demoralizing when you look at LSU's schedule.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game. It was a great game to watch. I'm sure it was a great game to be at live on TV. It was just really great quarterback play by Miller Moss and Nussmeier, back and forth. You didn't know what was going to happen. And it's sort of, to me, this is what we want, particularly as we get into this playoff. Like, this doesn't hurt anybody. Right. You don't have to do this. Let's rig the schedule to go 12-0 or 13-0. I think LSU, I get Brian Kelly angry because he didn't win the game. And I kind of like it. I don't, doesn't matter to me if he hits the table. People get all fired up with Brian Kelly, but
he created a meme.
Oh
sure.
My God.
Yes.
And somebody screenshotted right when he hit the table, and the water bottle in front of him flew into the air, and they've got the screenshot is the water bottle off of the table, it dispelled in midair. It's great.
It landed though, right?
I
It
guess so.
did not spill, I don't believe.
Good feet. Yeah.
Impressive effort by the water bottle.
Resilient Dasani or whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, it was a good game. I think you get more out of that than beating somebody 70-0, right? So I don't think it's bad. But I think USC's got to feel really good about it's all been, do they have the stuff in the trenches? Can they go up against these Big Ten teams? Well, they went up against LSU and did fine. Very happy for Miller Moss. 3 years he sat in the program, worked. He's a real cerebral player. A kid really enjoys USC. I know I've read some different stuff on him, and he loves the school. He wants to be a college student. He's into chess, all these different things. And, he goes into last year, the season ends. Obviously sits behind Caleb Williams, whatever. Is the number 1 draft pick. Lincoln Riley has a press conference before the bowl game. I mean, right at the end of the season, says, I'm going to bring in 2 transfer quarterbacks. Well, I've been here. Hey, coach. And then they get in the Holiday Bowl and he wins the job. And he's the next day, Lincoln Riley calls him. Now he's scared. Miller Moss is going to leave, right? He calls him and says, hey, I'm not taking any veteran quarterbacks, right? And the job was wide open for him. And now he's got it. And he looks tremendous. And so I love those types of stories.
Yeah, very happy for Miller Moss, who has put in his time there and gotten his chance, got better. Capitalized when he got the opportunity. And Lincoln Riley's tried to recruit over him. And they brought in Malachi Nelson, was the 5-star guy that was supposed to be the next guy, replacing Caleb Williams. That didn't work out. They did bring in Jaden Mayava from UNLV, and he's not beating out Miller Moss. And Miller has played extremely well in his 2 starts as USC Trojan. He was very emotional after the game on the field, and then he just kind of bottled that all up, and he was really kind of bland in the post-game press conference. We were hoping for a little more.
Yeah, we were walking out hoping we were getting a little more, but no
vultures, media vultures.
That's right.
Cry,
no,
kid,
just
cry.
Be happy for us. Come on.
Yeah.
But no, it was a very good performance by USC in general, and D'Anton Lynn. Do we have a rising coaching star? He's 34 years old. He's the son of Anthony Lynn, who was the head coach of the Chargers, has been in the NFL forever. He was the DC last year for UCLA, and their defense got unbelievably better. So Lincoln Riley, big play, goes across town, swipes him, brings him over, and at least after one game, their defense is unbelievably better. They tackled well, which USC, I think, was the worst tackling team in the country in 2022 and 2023. And they made open field tackles. They made tackles in gaps. They were tough up the middle. They covered. They had a couple of busts, but they were tough in the red zone. I just thought it was an incredible performance that makes me say, D'Anton Lynn knows what he's doing. Holy moly. They brought in six defensive starters via the portal. And then the bunch of other guys who were 2023 transfers in. So Lincoln said massive changes defensively, and they have been massive, but they're working. That's what impressed me. And one other quick note on LSU's offense. Kyron Lacey was unbelievable in the first half, and then they didn't get him the ball. And I don't know whether that was, I didn't study it while the game was going on, but whether that was an adjustment that Lynn made to say we're taking him away, or they just didn't even really press the issue to get him the ball. And the other thing, LSU has elite tackles, Will Campbell and Emory Jones. They're better pass blocking tackles than run blocking tackles, I think. And that's Will Campbell's going to make a ton of money as a left tackle in the NFL. But they didn't get a lot of push, I didn't think, as run blockers, and neither the guys inside of them, guard to guard. So that's an area, Ross talked about. They didn't run the ball well. Their line may just not be built to pound people.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The D'Anton Lynn hire, obviously, maybe one of the best coordinator hires, maybe the best one that we saw in the offseason. It had a lot of buzz around it. Took him from UCLA. Lincoln Riley did. And Lincoln Riley almost sounded surprised in his own defense afterward. That they trusted the system, and the new players trusted the system like they did on a big stage. And it was just, I kind of wrote this, but it was kind of almost like he internally was saying, did we really do that? Are we sure that was us? It's just kind of what it felt like. But yeah, that was one of the most impressive things. And look, there were a lot of, back to Miller Moss real quick. I mean, there were a lot of great quarterback play week one. We saw plenty of great stats. And maybe I'm biased because I was just at the game, but I think his performance was the best on that stage against a defense at LSU that's been improved. And he just made some really, really good throws. And he put his receivers in great spots to make phenomenal catches, which they did. Kyron Hudson had two catches that were the best. The two catches in that game from him might end up being two of the best we see all season. The one-handed catch, and then the catch late on the drive that set up the game-winning touchdown where he was just hit. He was literally targeted, and he hung on to the ball. And again, that catch was like a perfect throw in stride from Miller Moss. It was, if I'm Big Ten defenses, I'm a little anxious for that game against those USC players. And